Good morning, everybody, or good evening. I don't know what time this is going to be relayed. Professor Jane and all my wonderful friends in India who I know and don't know who will be at the meeting. I'm sorry I cannot be there. It is a very important conference and I've agreed to answer certain questions. And my wife Anu will ask me the questions and I will answer them. So Anu, let's go.
It's sometimes said that a blind judge cannot assess witness demeanor or manage a court effectively.
Yeah, it is sometimes said, but there's a more basic problem. The more basic problem is that people think that people who have a disability can't think. So they think a blind person can't think, a person on a wheelchair can't think. So, for example, I spoke to a guy on a wheelchair yesterday, and he said to me that he asks at a shop about the price of something, and he's with his wife, and they answer his wife. And that's not blindness, that's a person on a wheelchair. And of course, all people will ask my wife, does he take sugar? They will not ask me whether I take sugar or not. So basically, it's a more fundamental problem, and all these other reasons are excuses in one way or another. So let's get to the question of whether blind people can assess witnesses. Depending on how you assess them. It is wrong to assess witnesses by how much they shift in the witness box, how much they move around, whether they scratch their noses or not, and so on. Because I think those are all false indicators. A poor person who comes from a deep rural area will behave differently from a rich person. So very often, the lies are spoken by very sophisticated witnesses who have the command of the English language, who have the command of their demeanor, and who do it perfectly in a suit and tie. The way to assess witnesses is on the probabilities. Is what they say probable or not? Now, I have never had to assess a witness in court because I've been in the Constitutional Court where the assessment of witnesses who give evidence before you was not on. But when you cross-examine a witness, if you don't understand where the witness is, you can't cross-examine a witness properly. So the world will tell you that I was not a bad cross-examiner, and that was because I knew exactly from their tone of voice where the weakness in their evidence lay, and I attacked it straight away. So I think that any blind judge or judge with any disability would be able to manage. Of course, a blind judge has to work harder. It takes longer to read the papers. It takes longer to do things. But if you want to do it, you can.
How did you maintain the confidence of the bar in your mandate as a judge? Did you get lots of cynicism and pushbacks?
When I was a judge, I had no trouble at all. Because by the time I became a judge, I had been a lawyer for 25 years. I had been at the bar for 25 years. So they knew me as a practicing lawyer, as a practicing co-member of the bar. And I'm glad that I had a good reputation. And I do not think that anybody ever doubted whether I would make a good judge or not. My trouble started before that, when I was or wanted to be an attorney, because I went to 35 lawyers looking for articles of clerkship, and they all said what a wonderful person I was and how much they admired me and so on. But then they said they had no space. There was a lot of trouble getting work initially, which I had to battle hard to get. But by the time I got to the bench, the legal profession as a whole knew me well, and there was no difficulty at all.
During hearings, judges are normally required to synchronously read files. How did you manage that?
Well, I had a computer. The Constitutional Court was very good to me because accommodation was very important. I had a computer which talked to me. I had a braille printer at my disposal in court, which cost the court at that time around 2.5 million rupees, which is a lot of money. They invested the money on me, and I read stuff in braille, I read things on the computer, I had a machine, but it did take longer. And I must say that if I slept for more than 3 or 4 hours during any night when I was working at the court, it was a lot, because it does take blind people longer to read things.
What's your response to those who say that a judge with a disability will create too much of complications, need too much of help, and will not be able to cope with the tasks?
I think that as a general proposition is nonsense. It depends on the judge. If the judge concerned has a disability and has learned to cope with that disability, then that's fine. So the issue is not whether the person has a disability. The issue is, has the person learned to cope with it? And if the person has learned to cope with it, then it's fine. So the inquiry is not, can a person with disability do it? Of course a person with disability can, but has the person himself or herself learned to cope with their disability? That, I think, is a major question.
And I think this is related to Professor Jain's final question about creating more ZACs.
Oh yes, I don't know that it is a good idea to create more ZACs. Everybody is different. Everybody is different from each other, and I'm sure that different people will add different things. So you can't create people. I have been successful, it is true. It's been a difficult job. I've tried hard to do it, and I understand that people with disability will have some trouble getting it right, but they've all got to work hard and get it right, because it's not about brilliance, it's about hard work.
Final.
Thank you. That's it.